This is Craig's Nite Deceiver. I've been tying this fly for about 20 years or so. Every time I get a fresh whiting American hackled neck, I always will pluck the thing completely and tie all of my feathers by matching and getting that all nice and neat, so that, you know, the curves are right and all that. Well, I'll end up tying the whole darn thing. It ends up being about 20 or so, maybe, deceivers at a shot. And then I'll put the flash on and stick them in a bag, and I'll use them in the future when I need to tie this fly. I've caught more different types of large fish on this than any other deceiver I've ever thrown. You'd think as many Enrico videos that I've had that all I did was Enrico, but this is really the predecessor to that. This is a fly that I've had very good luck with. Caught my largest snook on this, caught my largest redfish on this, and I've caught a lot of numerous baby tarpon. They seem to really love this fly. Anyway, let's run through it. We start off with, I've already pre-tied the tail end of this, so I'm not going to go through working with the feathers, but the first step is we tie on a pretty substantial gob of white bucktail. Now I'm using 6/0 thread because the head on this fly is going to get huge. Because of the number of different materials and such that are involved in this. Okay, we're going to turn this fly over and measure. I want this maybe halfway down the feathers, if I'm lucky. And we're going to tie in this white bucktail on top. Or on the bottom, I should say. Now I'm just going to take that out of the vise and run that in between. Lock it back in. The next thing that I use is Mirage Accent. This is fabulous stuff. This is the brightest crystal flash that you can get. I'm going to use about 3 strands of this. Which I'm going to cut in half. Match the ends. Give it a quick cut. And we're going to place that on either side of the fly. Kind of V it in. And I'm going to pull it so it's along the sides of the fly. I didn't tie it in very tightly. Now I'm going to pull down tight, put a couple of wraps of it. Now, because again we're using a hell of a lot of material on this, it's really important to glue in between all your stages. I'm using Dave's Flex Mint. This stuff is very thin, so it soaks right down to the shank and locks all the material in place. Okay, we're done with the bottom of this fly for the moment. Now, the next thing that we bring in is some black crystal flash. I'm going to take a couple of strands of that. And I'm going to tie that on top of my white bucktail. Again, I'm V'ing it in. A couple of strands on your side, a couple of strands on my side. This is my lateral line. Now, the next flash that I'm going to bring in is about 3 or 4 strands of this glow-in-the-dark Flashaboo. This is where it gets the Nite name. I used to use this on the docks at night. Again, 3 or 4 strands on your side, 3 or 4 strands on my side. I'm going to tie that in. Okay, next is some gray bucktail. Again, a fairly substantial amount. This isn't a clouser. We need it to profile, and if you don't tie in enough material, it tends to smush down and you get little or no profile out of it. Now this one I'm going to, most of the length of the feathers there. So trim that off. Tie that in right on top of the hook. Okay, again, I'm going to bring in some glue. Get it good and soaked. Okay, the next flash that we're going to put in there is some lavender crystal flash. I'm going to bring in about 4 strands of it. And if you've ever tied gray and white clousers, I really recommend this lavender. It looks really good with the gray. Great accent color. Okay, tie that in on top. And we're going to kind of split it so it goes down the side of the gray. The next flash that we're going to bring in is a single strand, full length, of purple holographic flashabou. And I'm going to cut that in half, twice actually. Now, this particular one, I'm going to not marry the ends, so the flash is at 2 different lengths, and I'm going to lay it right on the top. So it goes right down the back there. And lastly, this is Fireflight tie. It's in a gray. You can't get it anymore. I bought a whole bunch of it, so I still have some around. I'm going to use about 4 strands of it. In your particular instance, silver flashabou would be a good substitute. Not quite the same, but I do like this stuff. And I'm going to bring that on the outside of the gray bucktail as well. Okay, this is pretty significantly flashy fly. Okay, I'm going to turn it over again. I'm going to put a throat on it. Now I'm using a small patch of red rabbit fur. It's off of a whole skin. You could use, a little bit of red zonker and cut just a little fragment of red to tie in right underneath. Not quite straight. And I'm going to trim that just a bit. Left it a little bit too long. And I'm going to tie everything down. Okay, once again, I'm bringing in a little bit of glue. Get that all done. Okay, next to last step is These are mallard flank feathers, and I'm going to cut them to length, a little bit shorter than that. I got a pair of these. Knock the fluff off of them, and we're going to start by tying one in on your side and just capture it. Not quite straight. And one on my side. Finish my head. Whip finish. And this fly is done. Final steps of this fly. Okay, here's one that's already tied. You can see I stick a little holographic eye on it, and then I epoxy the head. And I use the old school, 2-hour set flex coat type epoxy rather than the UV. You're more than welcome to use the UV. Be sure and brush. You see how far forward those eyes are set? They're set right almost just behind the thread. It's really important to brush just a little bit of epoxy back so it captures the front leading edge of that stick-on eye. The reason being that so it doesn't come off, once the epoxy is dried. Now, I'm going to sit down and finish up the rest of these. I've got 2 necks worth. I've got about 50 of these to tie tonight. And anyway, that's the Craig's Nite Deceiver. Thanks.